This video is brought to you in association with Fast and Loose, the Formula 1 post show by AMP. There are 2 weekends remaining in the 2022 F1 season and the championship fight couldn't be closer. Season-long rivals Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc are preparing to do battle to see who will be crowned. No, wait, hang on. This title fight has been over for ages. Still, there's plenty of other battles and storylines worth following in the final races of the year, so let us guide you through 10 things that are still at stake in this F1 season. For all of its success in F1 over the years, Red Bull has never claimed first and second in the Drivers' Championship. Sergio Perez has a great chance to achieve that for the team this year as he holds a slender 5-point advantage over Charles Leclerc. But Perez can't rely on overt help from Max Verstappen to do it. Understandably, Verstappen is determined to add another 2 victories to his record tally of 14 for the season. As he said in Mexico when asked about the possibility of helping Perez, "I think as long as he finishes ahead of Charles, that's the main target every race, and I'm here to win." Which version of Daniel Ricciardo is going to show up in Brazil and Abu Dhabi? Suzuka Q1 Ricciardo looked much more at home in the updated MCL 36 and showed Lando Norris beating pace. Austin Ricciardo was miserably slow and looked as though he should call it a day there and then. Mexico City Ricciardo was back within a sniff of making Q3 and racing superbly in that final stint, no longer feeling like a passenger in a McLaren that has usually been too unpredictable on corner entry for him to consistently show the best version of himself. If the grip is there for him, the confidence will flow and Ricciardo can finish on a high before plotting or waiting for a route back onto the grid for 2024 and beyond. Williams has promoted a driver who, as things stand, technically doesn't qualify to race in F1 next season. But if Logan Sargeant is good enough to be in F1 next year, then he should also be more than capable of finishing his Formula 2 season in a manner that allows him to comfortably make the grade. He currently sits 3rd in the F2 standings, and if he stays there, it will be more than enough to earn his F1 super license. But only 25 points separate him from 10th placed Yuri Vips heading into the final 2 races of the season in Abu Dhabi. If Sargeant has a nightmare final weekend and slips out of the top 6, he could find himself in trouble. Haas were probably hoping Daniel Ricciardo would decide life on F1's sidelines was less appealing than actually racing in 2023, but having appeared to rule himself out in favour of a mooted reserve role elsewhere, Ricciardo clears the way for a Nico Hülkenberg versus Mick Schumacher showdown. The seat is currently Schumacher's to lose, but it doesn't seem as though his improved qualifying form versus Kevin Magnussen since the summer break will be enough to overcome tense relations with Schumacher's camp behind the scenes and his various expensive crashes. The fact Ferrari looks set to drop Schumacher from its driver academy won't be doing him any favours either. You'd expect a young driver like Schumacher to have a higher potential ceiling than Hülkenberg, but if Haas was convinced of that, then it probably would have re-signed Schumacher already. Hülkenberg is a fast, known quantity and a proven reliable point scorer in F1's midfield. If 3 seasons spent mostly on the sidelines have properly remotivated him, then he could be a very shrewd signing. Had Alpine enjoyed greater reliability this season, on Fernando Alonso's car especially, this battle for 4th would be nowhere near as close as it is. For McLaren, 4th would represent stasis after a particularly challenging season, a reasonable salvage job even if the team hasn't kicked on as hoped after battling so closely with Ferrari in 2021. For Alpine, finishing 4th would represent the Renault Works team's best championship run since 2018. This should encourage Renault that its recent overhaul of Alpine's Enstone base is paying dividends. Check out Fast and Loose, the Formula 1 post show on AMP, a new live radio app where anyone can host their own audio show. Tune in live immediately after every F1 race as hosts Mika Hakkinen, Arnett and Michelle Beadle are joined by a rotating list of insiders, commentators and drivers. Listen, drop comments in chat or call in to join the conversation. AMP is live radio reimagined. Download the AMP app by clicking the link below and follow @AMP Presents F1 so you never miss a show. Currently available in the US only. Fernando Alonso has only been outscored once by his teammate in Formula 1. Now Esteban Ocon has an 11-point advantage over him and could join Jenson Button as only the second driver to do so. Alonso has been beaten by his teammates on countback in the past, by Lewis Hamilton in 2007 and even Tasso Marquez in 2001, but to bring in more points than the Spaniard would be a great achievement for Ocon. As Alonso has been quick to point out, he's been hit by significant reliability problems this season, and overall he has been the higher performing Alpine driver. But Ocon has also had car problems and he's still delivered consistent results. Alonso is likely to need to outscore Ocon by 12 points over the final 2 races, given the Frenchman has the better overall result with his 4th place in Japan. That's a big ask for Alonso given the Alpines are generally fighting for minor points positions, and Ocon is likely to get on the scoreboard as well if he doesn't hit problems. Second in the Constructors' Championship isn't what either Ferrari or Mercedes covet, but it would be a significant achievement for both for very different reasons. And it's lucrative too, given we estimate each step in the standings will be worth somewhere in the region of $11 to $12 million. Ferrari is 40 points ahead with 103 left to play for. Despite its title challenge falling apart this year, second would reflect genuine progress given it finished 3rd last year and 6th in 2020. For Mercedes, second would be a failure by its recent standards of 8 consecutive Constructors' titles, but considering the difficulties it's had with the troublesome W13, even to be in with an outside chance of nicking second confirms how well Mercedes has recovered and the extent to which it has made the most of a limited car. For a team of serial winners like Mercedes, a single race victory in a season shouldn't matter all that much. But psychologically speaking, it would put a positive spin on an otherwise disastrous campaign. Toto Wolff has said he would prefer Mercedes to win one of the remaining 2 races than to beat Ferrari in the points, because it would be proof our car is back to fight for wins. Wolff also says Mercedes simulations suggest a victory from the final 2 races is doable, but given Mercedes couldn't beat Red Bull in a straight fight at maximum altitude in Mexico, with all the advantages that brought in terms of minimising the W13's weaknesses, it's difficult to see how Brazil or Abu Dhabi offer a better chance. So it appears Mercedes is going to finish winless for the first time since 2011, and Lewis Hamilton's streak of winning in every one of his F1 seasons so far is about to end. The suggestion that Alfa Romeo would be under threat from Aston Martin for 6th in the Constructors' Championship in the closing stages of the season would once have seemed ludicrous. Alfa's great start to the season meant that after the 9th race in Canada, it had 51 points to Aston Martin's paltry 16. Since then, Alfa Romeo's results have slumped with just 2 points in the last 11 races. Aston Martin, meanwhile, has proved much more consistent and brought home points in 8 of those races. Sauber-run Alfa Romeo has the quicker car, particularly after introducing upgrades in recent races that have made it a Q3 contender once again. But its execution and reliability has been disappointing. That makes this a battle of a faster, less well-run Alfa Romeo versus a slower Aston Martin that the team generally makes the most of. A driver hasn't been banned from a Formula 1 race since Romain Grosjean in 2012, but Pierre Gasly is walking a tightrope, having taken his tally of super license penalty points to 10. As we explained in a recent video on this channel, if he picks up 2 more, not only in the final 2 races of this year, but also across the first 7 events next year, a 1-race ban will automatically be triggered. Gasly is heading into his final 2 races with AlphaTauri as it fights to beat Haas to 8th in the championship. That makes the stakes not only high for the team, but also for Gasly. After all, being banned for his AlphaTauri swan song, or worse still for his Alpine debut in next year's Bahrain Grand Prix, would be a disaster. This video is brought to you in association with Fast and Loose, the Formula 1 post show by AMP.